What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, I have a crazy story time for you guys today. Stories like this are kind of difficult to share because those that have not lived the crazy lifestyle that I used to live are just gonna assume that I'm lying because a lot of times stories like this just seem too crazy to be true. But it's true. If you guys are new here, hi, my name is Jess. I'm a person in long-term recovery who has served time in prison, and my entire crazy life story is in the description box down below. If you want to follow me on any other social media platform, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon, that's $2. It's only ever going to be $2. All of that is linked down below, as well as my vlog channel and my podcast. I am also a proud partner with Groups Recover Together. They are a both online and in-person treatment program. They strongly lean on harm reduction. They're 420 friendly. They are in 11 states and they're about to be in 8 more states, which is super exciting. So definitely go check out that map and see if they're in your area. One more thing before we start. My friend Mindy makes these dog tags and I just want to show you them. It's kind of hard to see with the light. It says, recovery did not open the gates of heaven to let me in. Recovery opened the gates of hell to let me out. You need it. You need it. Also, go support small businesses. I would like to add in here that Mindy and I are going to collaborate and do a limited edition Ride or Die Crew merch. So check that link in the description box. By the time you see this video, that might be out. All right, let's kick this thing off. When a story is so crazy that you speed past it in interviews or collabs or other people's channels and podcasts, and you don't film it for your own, that's how you know it's crazy. I've sped past this story multiple times when I share my story on other people's, channels or podcasts or whatever, but I haven't sat down and talked about this because people are gonna think that it's not true because it's crazy.
So, anyway.
Let me set the scene for you. I arrived in Fort Smith, Arkansas, gosh, when was it? Maybe May of 2011? I don't know. Time moved differently back then. And one of the first nights that I was there, I was in this apartment building. It's called the Boardwalk in Fort Smith. So it used to be a motel. They converted it into apartments. It's not really a safe place to be. I was there with my friend Robbie. You guys have met him on this channel. I've done multiple interviews with Robbie. He used to be my runner in New York. And when I went down to Arkansas, that's where he lived. I went down there to help him get sober. I was unsuccessful and that was just kind of a mess. But the reason why I was there was initially just to help him get sober, and then I fell into addiction of methamphetamine when I was down there. So I'm at this apartment complex. It's called the Boardwalk in Fort Smith. Rough place. Rough place to be. Maybe it's changed since I've been there, but it wasn't good when I was there. Anyway, we're in this apartment / literally still looks like a motel, and there's a bunch of guys in there and we're smoking meth. That wasn't my scene. I didn't like to smoke drugs. I like to shoot them. Sorry, it's TMI. But everyone's smoking and I don't want to be rude. And I think that is something that doesn't get talked about enough in the drug world. The people that I was around would have considered it to be rude if I didn't smoke, or they wouldn't trust you. I don't think that gets talked about enough. So specifically on methamphetamine, people are very nervous. It makes you very paranoid. And if there is someone in the room that is sitting there with you and they're not smoking with you and they're new, it's gonna make people nervous. And it's a respect thing. And I'm not gonna turn down free drugs. Okay, anyway, I was sitting there and they kept passing it to me. And a couple of them tapped out after a while. They're like, I'm good. I just kept smoking. And I'm like, I don't see the appeal. I didn't really get it. I was awake, so that was cool. Now, time was passing, right? It's 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock. People have left. There's only a couple people left in this apartment. One person went to sleep. I don't know how that's possible, or maybe they were just tweaking alone and didn't want to be messed with, which I get it, introvert. So by 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, it's just me and one other guy. We're just sitting on the couch, watching TV, talking a little bit, and I'm telling him that I want to get better at Spanish. He was Mexican, and he's like, oh, I can teach you. And I'm like, maybe, we'll see. I am Dora the Explorer level Spanish, mochila, what's up? So I'm not that good, but I, told him that I wanted to be fluent. So we're talking about that, and he's telling me, certain little phrases or whatever. And that's really all we were talking about. He left for a little bit came back with burritos from McDonald's. So he got me breakfast, and I thought that was like really nice because I promise you, no one else in that apartment gave two fucks about food or if I had eaten that day. And it's the small things, you know? It's a small thing. So I'm like, oh, we're gonna be friends. He's cool, he fed me, like that's what's up. So that's how I got to know this one person. And for the sake of the video, we will call him Carlos. So I had gotten to know Carlos a little bit. After that night, our interactions were a lot more brief. So there was some feud between him and Robbie. He was saying that Robbie owed him a bunch of money and he wanted me to help him get it. And I'm like, yo, that's not my beef, I'm sorry. So things were a little bit tense and, you know, we all kind of knew the same people. But over time, we just saw each other in passing. So, you know, whatever. He was always really nice, always really respectful to me, and I liked him. I thought he was a decent person, even though he wanted to steal everything from Robbie, like TV and whatever, to get his money back, because he was very adamant about the fact that Robbie owed him money, which probably, it's the nature of the game, right? So, and I was always very like honest about that, you know, like what he does has absolutely nothing to do with me. You know, that's on you to get it back. It's the game. I'm not gonna insert myself in your beef with him. And he respected it, and we kind of just had that mutual like, sup, what's up, every time we saw each other. Long story short, I ended up meeting a lot of different people throughout my time in Arkansas, and I started selling more and more meth. So did he, right? So did Carlos. But Carlos and I had different clientele. So we didn't have a beef like that, but we did inevitably see each other quite often. Okay, here we go. Here's the story. Sorry if that took a really long time to get there. I just kind of want to set the scene for you guys and let you know like how I know this person and whatever and blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, Jess, just tell the fucking story. So one night I was in this trailer in Arkansas, which I kind of have talked about a number of times on the internet. It was essentially a condemned trailer. I don't even think it's there anymore, but it had air conditioning in Arkansas in the summer. Hot as hell. It is hot as hell in Arkansas compared to where I'm from, which is upstate New York. So I'm in this trailer by myself, really, really high, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's where everything happens in the meth world. Super strange. Like,
go to sleep, eat a sandwich.
But I'm by myself in this trailer and there's a knock on the door. Now, if you've heard previous stories, you know that there have been multiple instances where I was on meth that I thought people were outside of this trailer and talking, and I guess hallucinated and had like these like audible hallucinations where like I would hear things that weren't there, and that was pretty trippy. Weird. But that is, you know, very normal in meth psychosis. Well, nothing is normal in meth, but when you have sleep deprivation and the chemicals and you're maybe dehydrated, it's very normal in that world to hallucinate and have audible or visual hallucinations because of sleep deprivation and chemicals. So I heard a knock on the door and I'm like, no one's gonna come here at 3 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Then I hear another knock. And I'm like, okay, you're not tweaking. Like, I mean, you are, but you're not. Like, there's someone at the door. I open the door. It's Carlos and like 4 other people that I had never seen before ever. And I'm like, what's up? And I look down and he has a like dish rag holding his hand and it's filled with blood. And I thought, what just happened? And I'm like kind of frozen for a second. I'm like, are you okay? And he said, you know, Jessica, can I come in? And I'm like, yeah, come in. And he's there, and this guy that I'd never seen before ever had a backpack that he dumped out, and it has everything. It has gauze, it has Bactine and gloves, and it has like Band-Aids and alcohol, and it has all this stuff, right? So I'm like, did you rob a pharmacy before you came here? What is going on? He looks me dead in the face and said, I heard you were a nurse. I just need you to sew my hand. I'm sorry. You want me to what? You want me to sew up your stab wound? Bruh, no. I'm like, who said I was a nurse? And apparently he had heard that in a conversation with Robbie. I don't know how, because that was when I was 18 years old and I was a CNA for like 6 months. 6 to 8 months, right? I changed bedpans. I read stories to people in this nursing home. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a nurse, you know? So I'm like kind of freaked out because the dish rag is covered in blood and everyone is like really serious. No one's really saying anything in English. and they're talking really quietly and barely saying anything in Spanish. But I'm like, Carlos, listen, man, I don't know how to do that. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Like, you have to go to the hospital. You have to go. And he goes, Jessica, I'm here illegally. I just need you to sew my hand. I'm like, sew your hand. Okay, okay. Sew your hand. And I am pacing and I don't know what to do. And I'm shaking and I'm so scared because I haven't even seen what this looks like yet, but there's a lot of blood. So at one point I was like, fuck it, I ain't no bitch. Women see a lot of blood in our lives, you know what I'm saying? So I've seen a lot of blood. I don't like it, but I've seen a lot of blood in my lifetime. So I'm like, okay. I sewed a blanket one time. I mean, how hard could it be? We're at this table, it's a dirty table, and he takes off the dish rag and it is disgusting. It is, I can see his muscle and it was the craziest thing. It looked like these like, not white, kind of clear like beads almost. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know how to explain like muscle tissue, but I could see like his muscle or like maybe fat. Like it was not just like a scrape where you just see like, you know, blood or whatever. No, I saw like muscle tissue, and bubbles or beads is like the wrong word to use. I don't know what I'm trying to explain, but it was substantial. And it was like not from there. It's from like here down a little bit. And it was probably, I mean, it was a good size gash. It was probably this big, and it was thick because I could see the muscle bubbles or tissue or whatever. So I'm like, okay, Carlos, can you please go to a hospital? Or like, is there anyone that you know that is better? Like, can we call anyone else? And he said, if I knew anyone else, I wouldn't be here. I'm sorry. So I'm like, okay, can you go rinse it off and let me just look at like where I need to do that, right? And I am scared, like out of my mind scared that I am going to cause an infection and his hand is gonna fall off. Like I was so scared. And everyone else in the trailer was very serious, very stone-faced. And I had never seen them before. So as much as I'm trying to be like, can you go rinse it off? Like, okay, let me try to figure this out. I'm also a little intimidated because there are also 4 large men that I've never seen before in my life in this trailer. And they look like they mean business, right? Like they look like you're gonna sew up this hand and we're not leaving until you do kind of vibe. So Carlos is like rinsing off his hand and I hear him like, he's like, ugh, like I can hear that it's hurting him to rinse it. Like I hear that I have just caused him pain, which I am like, okay, I'm nervous. If that is hurting him, how the fuck am I supposed to sew a hand, right? And they had a sewing kit there, not like a doctor. Like I've had stitches like 13 times too. So this maybe helped me get some balls in this situation. Like I've had stitches 13 times, but I've never watched them do it because ew. I've had stitches in both of my knees, my leg, my elbows, my head, where else? My face has been stitched up, but I've never like watched them do this. And when Carlos is here asking me to sew up his hand, it's been years since I've had stitches. I was like young teenager, young adult, even kid when I had stitches. So I don't know what I'm doing. But he has this sewing kit and like Bactine and rubbing alcohol and gauze, like a lot of gauze and gloves and like some big Band-Aids and some other stuff. And Carlos sits down and he puts his hand on some paper towels and he puts it on the table. And I'm like, just don't look scared. Don't look scared. It's not a big deal. I had put thread, like actual thread, like thread in clothes. Not like dissolving stitches. No, it's a sewing kit that you use to sew clothes. So I put gloves on and I had put the thread through the needle and I tied it on one end and I just thought, sew it like you would a blanket. Don't even worry about it. There's nothing to numb this either besides drugs. Oh, I didn't mention this. He's a little drunk and I don't know what else he had in his system. He's not sober. And obviously he can't be because this is extremely painful, but this is something out of like a freaking movie, like Wild Wild West, like go to a doctor. This is out of like a movie where someone escapes prison and like they get hurt so they have to go to a vet, right? Like I've seen that in the movies, but I'm like, just don't look scared. So I pierced his skin, like his hand with the needle. You guys, I will never forget that feeling of putting a needle through someone's skin and dragging thread through a hole in his skin. So what I did is I poked it on both sides of the wound. And what I did is I took the ends of the thread and I tied it together, which was the most disgusting thing probably ever. And I'll never forget the texture and what it felt like to do that. So I didn't know any other way. All I knew was like, you have to close this, or like this is bad, like his muscles showing. So I pierced it through both ends and I dragged the string through the holes that I just made. I know. And the end of the string, and here's the needle, and I tied it. And I just kept doing that. And the more I got down into like the main part of the wound, like the widest part of the wound, it was the most disgusting thing. And I made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I put alcohol before I started doing this because that was the only way I knew how to like not have it like I'm trying to disinfect this area, and that really hurt. But I don't know what I'm doing. So I got to the middle part and I had to like tie it, and I'm seeing that it's working, and it's pulling this side of the wound and this side of the wound together. So it's working, but it's gross and it's bleeding, and I'm terrified that like you're gonna get an infection and you're gonna lose your hand. Like, this is really bad. Well, I finished that and it was ugly. It was ugly. I had made mistakes where like there was a lot of spaces in between it too. Like it's not funny. There was just spaces and it looked awful and it looked ugly and it looked really, really gross. When I got done sewing it, and that is a really generous term for what I did, closing it with thread is essentially what I did. I put alcohol on a piece of gauze. I put alcohol on it again, and then I took some gauze and I wrapped his hand in gauze and I taped it up with like this like white, not surgical tape? I don't know. White like tape. And that was how I left his hand. After I had put, the gauze on it, after just a couple of minutes, blood started to seep through it and I could see it. And he is in pain. Like, he is in a lot of pain. So I'm like, please go to a doctor. Please, just please take him to a doctor. This is going to get infected. I am not a real nurse. Like, please take him somewhere. And the guys that were there were just, thank you. And one guy pulled out some money and he was going to pay me. And I said, no. I don't want your money. Please take him to a hospital. And he kind of looks at me like, okay. Like, what did you think this is? You think that people are just coming over here and paying me to stitch up their wounds? So I'm like trying to explain, like, I don't want money. I just want him to be okay. So then, I don't know if they spoke a lot of English. They spoke some English, but then he tried to hand me meth, like an ounce of meth. And I turned that down too. And I was like, no, hospital. Hey, como se dice hospital? Like, please go somewhere else to make sure his hand doesn't fall the fuck off, okay? So he thanks me and they leave. All of that seemed like it happened super fast. So they leave, right? And I'm like, whoa, what just happened? What just happened? And I go to the kitchen and I throw away the dish towel that was covered in blood and I try to clean up that mess the best that I could, because they kind of just left this stuff here. And I'm like, whoa, just get high and forget all about it. And that's what I did. A couple of days later, maybe a week goes by. I don't know. I have no concept of time. And I go to re-up with someone that I'm with. Now, I'd been here before and there is some protocol. When we go to these houses to re-up, if there is anyone in the car, that was usually me, the person that I'm with re-ing up has to take my phone from me and we have to give them to someone that's standing outside. No phones are allowed. The phones have to be turned off and they have to be given to the person that's there. These houses are empty, essentially. But I usually just sit in the driveway, or I don't go, or I sit down the street. There were different protocols for this, and I'm not really gonna get into that because it doesn't matter. In this scenario, I was in the driveway and I give my phone, and someone else comes out of the house, person that I saw once before at the trailer a week ago. And he goes, and I'm like, oh, I gave him my phone. No, I gave him, he has my phone. And he goes, no, come here. And I'm like, what'd I do? Oh my God, I'm not supposed to go in. Like, I don't go in. I gave he's got my money and this other dude has my phone, I don't go inside. And I'm confused and I'm kind of nervous. I get out and I go inside because are you gonna not go inside? It was empty. There was a styrofoam cooler, lawn chairs, and they were stealing electricity from some other house. And I'm like looking around like, oh, is this where I die? Am I gonna end up a lampshade in some creepy house? So it's a little nerve-wracking, but the guy thanked me for helping Carlos, and he said, you don't have to go anywhere else anymore. And also what I've been charging you, I'm gonna cut that as well. So you're not gonna have to pay as much, and you come straight here. What? Why? You know, so immediately I'm like, why? And he said, I know what you did, and I just appreciate it. And I'm like, okay. Thanks. Thank you. Now I had given my money to someone else that was inside already, and I got my re-up of meth, and I also got money back because I paid too much. And I couldn't believe that that had just happened. So I walked out of that house. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm a different person now, but I walked out of the house and I'm like, I'm a fucking gangster. That was the attitude that I had. But when it was happening, I wanted to cry the whole time and I wanted to throw up and I was not gangster at all. And I was scared and I was shaking and I was really worried. So it's just so strange how drugs can be like, fuck, I ain't no bitch. I'll sew up your hand. I'm a gangster. No, you're not, dude. But I thought that like I was making a name for myself here and I was building a reputation for myself and like I was gonna be powerful in that world. I don't want that world. They can keep that world. As far as Carlos, I never saw him again. I didn't see him again. I heard that he got arrested and deported, and I'm not sure if he's alive right now. Unrelated to the hand incident. But yeah, so Carlos, if you're watching and you're still here, what's up, bro? I'm so glad I'm not in that lifestyle anymore because it was dangerous and I got really lucky. There were plenty of times where I shouldn't have made it out. And this story is so crazy that I know people are not gonna believe me. And that's why I haven't shared it on this channel because it was just one of those things that I'll never forget. I'll never forget what it felt like to put a needle through someone's skin and stitch up a wound. I'll never forget it. I'll also never forget Carlos's kindness to me the first time I met him. Like, it might seem so petty and small that he got me breakfast from McDonald's, but in that world, it's not. No one gave a shit if I ate that day because they didn't eat that day. Everyone's high, right? Little moments of kindness I remember all the way through. And that's why it's important to be kind to those struggling in addiction. Tough love doesn't work. I remember when people were kind and didn't judge me and offered me a safe space to go to over the people that were judgmental and I didn't feel comfortable or safe around. Not safe, but like I didn't feel like I could be myself there because I was a drug addict. I'm gonna end today's video here. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe. Stay in recovery, whatever that looks like to you. That lifestyle is not gangster. It is not gangster living in a half bathroom with another person. Prison's not gangster. Overcoming addiction and getting out of that lifestyle, that's what's gangster. Bye, you guys.